Welcome to Connecting the Community podcast. I am your host, Marge Andre. I will be connecting you to people, organizations, and events that create community. I am creating this podcast in Richmond Hill, an eclectic and very culturally diverse community with lots of trees and streams and interesting people, just up the hill from Toronto. On this podcast, I will be talking with Krista Andrews, the pastor from the Salvation Army Church in Richmond Hill. About a year ago, we were having a similar conversation. I believe we need to talk again. We will be focusing on this podcast on talking specifically about the Christmas Kettle Campaign. But I do want people to be more aware of the presence of Salvation Army in our community. Welcome, Krista.
It's wonderful to be chatting with you.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that we found time to have this conversation. Let's start by you telling us a little about yourself and what is your role at the Salvation Army?
Sure. So I've been a pastor with the Salvation Army for over 20 years. And that kind of journey has led me all over Canada, but also elsewhere in the world, which is very cool. And super blessed to be as a pastor in Richmond Hill. And of course, like we all know, the idea of pastor is a very multi-layered, the position itself has changed so much in the last little while. So some days, sometimes I find myself cleaning. Some days I'm leading kids groups. Some days we're doing social services opportunities and sharing in our community in a specific way. Some days I'm handing out food to people, and some days I'm preaching a sermon. So it just depends on which day you find me, what's going on. So, but that's what I do with the Salvation Army here in Richmond Hill.
Okay. You are not bored, so that's for sure.
No, that's for sure.
Okay. Now, the Salvation Army is a church, but I feel it's more than that. Can you talk about the concept of the Salvation Army and why is it called an army?
Yeah, for sure. So like the Salvation Army has a fairly significant mission focus, right? And so when we use the word mission, we talk about practical needs for the everyday person. And really it comes from our beginnings, which was in London, England. And at the time, William Booth, who's the founder of the Salvation Army, was talking about Christianity and talking about Jesus and what he means, but talking about it with people who were starving, people who just were barely getting by in life. And that's when, for him, it solidified this soup, soap, and salvation kind of thing where, first we really need to care for people. And that's our call. And really humanity, that's our call. And so the Salvation Army connects in very, very well in that space that we want to be serving our neighbor. We want to be loving each other. And in doing that, we care for the basic necessities of life for people in our community. And so that's where this idea of helping humanity really has become a huge part of our DNA and a huge part of who we are. So our social arm is balanced with what I would say our church arm in the midst of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very well said. And I like that phrase, soup, soap, and salvation. I had not heard that before, but that makes a lot of sense.
It's a very old one. It's a very old one. So it's a good one, though.
Yeah, it's a good one. So you've talked about how it started in England. You've traveled the world. Like, is it in how many countries are there Salvation Army churches?
Oh, so look, we've just opened in a couple of more. I want to say that we're at 134 countries, I believe, but a worldwide Salvation Army. So it's a worldwide expression. And, I've had the opportunity of serving with the Army in Australia. So my husband and I did a couple of years, 4 or 5 years in Australia, but also like in the midst of traveling the world and our ministry in Australia, We got to PNG. We've been to Zimbabwe. So we have seen the Salvation Army at work in so many different places and spaces. And, probably what is incredibly unique about the Salvation Army is we're also in places like the Ukraine, the places where there's some real significant challenges in just life being available for people in a good way. The army is there in the midst of some of the darkest and some of the most challenging places in our world. Mm-hmm. So I'm very proud to be part of a worldwide organization that loves humanity across the globe. And so it's a unique organization in that way.
Yeah, very, very good. Woo. Yeah. Okay, let's now go back and start talking about local efforts, because we live in a good place, but we still need to do some work. So let's talk about this Kettle Campaign. Launches December 1st. We're recording this podcast December 1st. So tell us more about it, and when and where are these kettles?
Okay. So the Salvation Army Christmas Kettle Campaign, it's this annual thing. It's actually been, I think it's the 133rd year or something ridiculous like that. Like it's been around a very, very long time. And really across Canada, the Christmas Kettle Campaign is our biggest fundraising campaign of the year. So the Salvation Army in and of itself, especially for Richmond Hill, this is our only real big appeal to our community to help us financially to run what's called our community and family services throughout the year. So that's what the Kettle Campaign is in essence. It's this yearly thing that happens at Christmas time, knowing that Christmas time people are generous and are wanting to give. And and so it is the season of giving in the Salvation Army. And so we've connected that very, very well with Christmas. So in Richmond Hill, we have kettles everywhere from, you'll see them in most LCBOs. We're up at High Tech, at Loblaws, and we've got a couple of Walmart locations in Richmond Hill. Costco, you'll see it in Costco. And we're also at Hillcrest Mall. Hillcrest Mall is one of our biggest and best supporters when it comes to partnership, through the Christmas Kettle Campaign. And so we're actually kicking off our Kettle Campaign at Hillcrest Mall. And really, Marge, at the end of the day, the funds that are raised in the kettles locally stay local. And that's probably the most important thing to say, that every bubble, as we bring it in and as we count it with our volunteers and with our people and staff here, they're counted, deposited in our local reality, and every fund, every dollar is used in our local space. And that allows us to do everything from provide the basic necessities of food to clothing, winter coats. We run specific programs throughout the year that help support people in our community in a very specific way. Also, it helps us send kids to camp. Like that's huge, right? So our camping program, giving those opportunities to kids to participate in a camping setting, a good portion of it goes to that. And also, our community garden helps us run that. So there's like a huge list of things that we do here in our local community just to support the basic needs of people around us. And so all of the money in the Christmas Kettle Campaign goes to those kinds of opportunities.
Woo, you do a lot. You're very busy, and I really hope there's lots of support for the Kettle Campaign. I've manned a kettle. You're actually calling it a bubble, which I think is a better word than a kettle. So it looks like a big 2-foot bubble. But times have changed, and very often, I know for myself, I don't always have cash on hand. So a few years ago, you started doing the tap function. Is that correct?
Yep. So it's called Tip Tap.
Tip Tap, okay.
It's great. It's great to have that conversation with people, because you'll get people who will walk by and who'll be like, oh, I don't have any cash. I'll have to remember that. And you can say, hey, we just happen to have something. And so it's pre-described amounts. So 5, 10, and 20. And it's just a matter of taking your credit card or debit card and tapping depending on which amount you want to give, right? And so some people, and I had this happen a few times last year, some people want to give more then the 5, the 10, and the 20. And so we just spend a few minutes tapping a few times, right? And
Okay.
we can get all 100 in. It's no problem.
Okay.
And so, yeah, the tip taps it's a great feature. And every one of our kettles in Richmond Hill has that tip tap option.
Okay. So very good. Yeah. It makes so much sense. Did it just start last year? How many years ago did it start?
No, I think it's been happening for 3 or 4 now.
3 or 4 years. Okay.
I think pretty much every bubble, every kettle has a tip tap on it.
Okay. And like what percentage of the funds received would be with this?
So that is great. That actually is a great question. And like to use the feature, I think it takes 1.5%,
Okay.
from the total amount that's given. But if you kind of think about that, that's like what we receive then is quite significant, right? So, but 1.5 of it goes to the administration of the tip tap, and then the rest of it comes to us directly.
Any idea of how many, like what percentage of the funds you collect would come back?
So believe it or not, here in Richmond Hill, it's actually not as big as some other places, but about 20% of what came in last year came in through tip tap.
Oh, okay. I bet you it's more this year.
So it's catching on. People are getting it, right?
Yeah, they are. Yes. Okay. So you still have these, you can still drop your money in. It sounds like lots of people do that, but there are no bells anymore, correct?
Do you know what, Marge? It depends on your location. Okay.
Oh.
So there's some places that are no problem. LCBOs and these guys, Walmart even, they don't mind it at all. But there's some places where the noise for the vendors around and stuff gets a little irritating. So it's So they're not gone all the way, but we have these conversations with the people who are allowing us in, if they're okay with it. Yeah.
Okay. I like the bells. So yeah. Okay. Okay. It's part of tradition. I used to go to Hillcrest Mall with my kids, and you'd hear the bells, and it triggered a good memory. But also in going to Hillcrest Mall with your kids, it wasn't a real easy, tangible way to have your kids start giving. And they could drop the money in. You could talk about the needs of the community. So I encourage all parents to take that opportunity to do that. So they could tap, or they could just drop in the bill, change. And it was, I think that's quite, I encourage people to do that. You do not have an office on Edward Street as you used to. You now are sort of in transition, and we just before we came on, I was like trying to figure out where are you, and you're now in the Richville Community Center, and temporarily, so you're moving around, but you have these locations where you do counseling and you store stuff to give out. What else happens in your location, wherever you end up being?
Yeah. So we've got a great partnership with the counseling center, and we're able to provide some of that for people. We're giving stuff out all year long. So in regards to food, and we do vouchers for the thrift store, and so we've got a partnership with the Salvation Army thrift store. We don't actually run it, but we've got this beautiful partnership where we're able to help people with vouchers to get clothing. One of the biggest things that really has become a larger need for us is around the newcomers, so new people who are coming to Canada, and that is happening like it's massive in our community here. So a lot of what we do is just kind of help them set up their homes or their apartments or wherever it is that they are, with practical things that they need to restart their lives in Canada. And let me tell you some of the stories, just even actually this past week, while we were doing registration for Christmas, story after story after story of people who have really like they're heroes, making their way to Canada, and it hasn't been an easy journey for them, so the most that we can help them feel welcome in our country, we attempt to do that and do that well.
Yeah. So at least we should be able to give them some pots and pans and dishes and things like that and such.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Practical things.
Okay. Back to the manning the kettles.
Sure.
That is like, you need people to help you out. Like you have a church, you have congregation, but usually people do it for a couple of hours, and that ends up being a lot of a couple of hours, and your church is not that big. So and I've said I've done it. I've enjoyed doing it. It's just been fun with friends. I met people. I felt good about being there and encouraging people to do it. So you are encouraging anyone to sign up. Often as couples, I know a couple that's what they're going to do for a couple of hours, and I think that's quite nice. So yeah, so can you tell us a little bit more about volunteering to man a kettle?
Absolutely. Like, so it's got to be, look, it's got to be one of the easiest things to do, like in regards to volunteering, because really all you need to do is to go and stand next to one of our bubbles, smile, and say thank you as people donate. It is honestly one of the most easiest but rewarding opportunities of volunteering out there. And you spoke to something that's really important, and that's like, we do have people in our church family and in our congregation that give. Like, our people this year at this time of year are super strapped because we're also doing our annual Christmas toy distribution. And that, that divides us, because we want to make sure that we're serving our community in regards to the Christmas season and making sure that there is toys underneath the tree for every child that connects in with us. And that's a big feat. That's a big adventure. So the more the public can help us out with our Christmas Kettle campaign, the more it actually frees up our church family to do the practical Christmas campaign that we have in regards to toys. So we're dependent upon our public volunteers to help us with our Christmas Kettle campaign. And so we need as many people as possible, because we can only put bubbles out or put kettles out as we have volunteers. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'll put in the podcast notes the link for where to do that, and also the phone number if you have a challenge with trying to figure this out, the system out. But you can.
Here's an idea for people, Marge. Like, so often this time of year, there's companies and there's groups of people that want to give back to the community. And one that we're really trying to get out there is this idea of sponsoring a day in the kettle. And so what happens is you kind of get together with your workplace and you say, okay, we're going to cover the kettle for a full day for the Salvation Army at Hillcrest. Everybody takes an hour, out they go and just do their hour and come back. And the full day is covered for us. And that makes things really, really easy. If you have a large family, your family can sponsor a day on the kettle where siblings can get together and each take an hour or something along those lines. So students, high school students, my goodness, you guys can couple up together, have 2 or 3 on a kettle at the time. And it's a great, great opportunity, to give back in that way as well. So just a few ideas, not just like volunteering individually, but you can think broader and bigger than that.
Okay. So if you're at Hillcrest, there's no bells, but you can wear a Santa hat. So yeah.
Yeah, right.
Or reindeer ears, whatever you like. Okay, so you can have some fun with it as well. So that is good. Thank you for saying that. So we started talking about this distributing of toys. It's something that you are very good at, and I know people directed to it. But how does it actually work? Like, how do you how are the families in contact with you? How does that work?
Oh, the families find us. We have to do any we don't have to do any legwork when it comes to connecting like in that way. I think that just people with Christmas and Salvation Army, it's kind of synonymous now, that just people understand that there's that opportunity that comes at Christmas time. So yeah, and it's a very busy time of the year for us. Now, a lot of the people that we see at Christmas are people who regularly connect with us throughout the year. And so we've got this relationship with our clients that creates that space. And so they receive that assistance at Christmas. But a lot of people use and connect with us at Christmas, for that, for the need of just getting some toys for underneath the Christmas tree, because it's been a hard year. Yeah. And really, there are a lot of people in our community who are doing it tough. But the flip side of it as well is we see a lot of people who are new to Canada. And, the Christmas season for people is a new thing to celebrate. And so we're able to kind of talk to them a little bit about, this is how we do things in Canada when it comes to the Christmas season. And, we want you to participate and to be part of that reality. And so we also have that's part of what we share.
So what type of donations do you need, and how do people get the donations of toys or gift cards or What is it that you need?
Yeah. Oh, toys from, so we serve kids from 0 right through to age 16, 17. Our biggest need probably is teenagers. Everybody forgets the teenagers. Yeah. So everybody wants to get toys for little ones, but teenagers is always tough. So if your listeners are looking for something specific, like a specific need, teenagers is always a need. And so you can do anything from makeup to hair products to sports things for boys. Toiletries for teenagers is a big thing that we're in need of. So that's just a few ideas and a few examples. And we're here at the community center, 160 Avenue Road, Tuesday to Friday, 9 to 4. And so toy donations can be dropped off during that time. And it's actually, we're receiving donations now. So
Okay. Very good. That is good to know. Okay.
yeah. Probably important to realize as well that so our distribution to families is happening between the 12th to the 15th. So if anybody is thinking about a practical donation like a toy, the earlier, the better.
I will put that message out loud and clear. We have talked about the Salvation Army thrift store because I think it's I like the store. It's like well organized. Well, I've dropped off stuff and went and treated myself to a few things. What is the relationship between the Salvation Army thrift store, located there up in Yonge and Elgin Mills, and your organization, your church, what you were doing?
Yeah, we've got a beautiful connection with the thrift store, and the thing is that all thrift stores in the Salvation Army, when it comes to their revenue, it all goes back into the local community. And so, if you donate to the thrift store and if you shop at the thrift store, we actually see the results of that, as they're able to kind of give back to us in order to serve our community. So all funds that are raised, through the Salvation Army thrift store and revenues comes back into your community directly. And so they help us with a lot of things, especially when it comes to, getting kids to camp and so on and so forth. So we also have this beautiful relationship where if people are in need of some specific things, we do what's called a voucher system. And so people will come in here and we just assess what it is that they need. And then we send them to the thrift store with a voucher to be able to use to get what they need to get. So it's important to donate to the thrift store. Very important. And it's also important to know that we have that beautiful relationship with the thrift store. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. You've alluded to this, that there are a lot of people in need in our community. Has things changed over time? Like the headlines keep saying things are getting worse and worse. Like, how would you describe how things are?
Yeah, it's really quite challenging. So when I sit down and I do a lot of intake, this is what I mean when the pastor role is not the typical role. I've spent a lot of time the last couple of weeks doing what we would call intake, right? And this is specifically for our Christmas toy distribution, doing intake, meeting with people, hearing their stories and recognizing where they are. The cost of everything is going up, right? And so even the working class people are finding it hard. Like even those that have full-time jobs are finding it super, super tough, because the problem is that the cost of living is going up. My goodness, when it comes to renting, whoa, in our community, renting is just out to lunch. It is crazy. And so, I'm getting a lot of people who I see and have conversations with who are actually working full time, but cannot afford the basics because, rental is so high, groceries are so high, everything is so high. And I think that's just what we need to be cognizant of, right? That we're not talking about people who are not doing their best, to make ends meet. Many of the people who we're serving, they are doing their best to make things work. But it is hard. It is hard. And so I think it's just the recognition of that, I think there was a time when you'd be helping people that, don't have jobs and are not able to work in their field. And that still is very much our reality. Like, so just to be honest, that is very much the reality of people. But we're seeing an increase of the working class people that are just not able to make ends meet. And so we just need to be cognizant of that, right? And that's where the increase of need is coming from. From that, and we know the face of our community is changing significantly. And so newcomers, this is a very, very big thing for us here in Richmond Hill. We are seeing an increase in newcomers to Canada. And so that it's changing the face of our community in a wonderful and beautiful and multicultural way. So we're just very mindful of that. And that's our reality.
Right. Yeah. We're growing pains for this transition. What countries are they coming from? Just curious.
Okay. Yeah. So Iran is huge. We get a lot of people who speak Arabic, and so that's like Iraq, these places, but also Ukraine. So seeing lots of people from the Ukraine these days, and I'm just trying to think, like Nigeria seems to be a place where we're seeing a lot of folks from as well, and the list can go on, but yeah, definitely Iran, many of the Arabic countries, and Ukraine seems to be like topping the list.
Okay. No, thank you for just curious what's happening. And I appreciate having a little more insight into how our community works. It's easy to not see it. And that is unfortunate. So thank you for that.
And it's for Google Translate. That's all I've got to say. Google Translate is changing our lives here. Yeah. Yes, we need it. So
okay. Very good. Krista, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
We live in the most amazing community, Richmond Hill. So I've only lived here for a couple of years. Yeah. I'm originally from Newfoundland, and Richmond Hill is just the most beautiful place to live. And it's not about the amenities or anything like that. I mean, that's good. But it's about the generous hearts of the people who live in this community. And we are overwhelmed, honestly, year after year, thing after thing. The community shows up and helps us. Backpacks this past year, my goodness, the donations were just exceptional. And we know like Christmas last year, we were just overwhelmed with the donations that came in. So I just want to take a minute and thank our community. It's a beautiful place to live. It's like living in a small town next to, the biggest city in all of Canada. But we love it here, and we love the people we serve, but we love the people who donate and who love the people around them. And that's really what it is. So thank you. Thank you to Richmond Hill for all that they're doing. Thank you to the city for letting us hang out here at 160 Avenue Road. It's, they're being a super big gift to us in allowing us to be here. And we're so grateful for the community in which we live in.
Yeah, very good. Well, the question I was going to ask, but you've sort of answered it, is name one thing. So I'm asking you, can you restructure your answer to what's the one thing you really like about our community?
The giving hearts.
Giving hearts. I like that. So
giving hearts.
Okay. Well, thank you for everything that you do. It's been delightful, positive to talk with you. I hope that the Kettle Campaign is a great success, and everyone's there and tapping or dropping the money in, and you are quite successful and dropping off the gifts to you as well. So thank you again, Krista. I'll let you get back to work, and hopefully we see you around the community soon.
Thank you so much, Marge. It's been a delight.
Thank you for listening. I would very much appreciate you sharing this podcast. Please tune in next week as we continue to explore the community. Consider emailing me at Marge, M-A-R-J, at margeandre.com. I welcome suggestions for podcast guests. Stay well, stay connected.